Hi everybody, so in this video we're going to be doing the third practice problems related to the supply and demand model. So if you haven't looked at the equilibrium lecture yet, where we put both of the curves together and we shift them all around, you need to take a look at that before trying this. So the first one is just actually repeating what we did in the lecture, but getting you to think about it without having the graphs in front of you. Now on a test, it's actually sometimes useful just to kind of quickly draw a tiny little picture off to the side and say like, oh, if supply does this and then the price goes this way. So I would just suggest, get in the habit of drawing these tiny little graphs so that you can know what's really happening. Now on this one, we'll just say if demand goes up, right? And we know that demand is to the dirt. So if demand increases, and that's a shift to the right, then price and quantity, right? What happens to those? Well, price goes up and quantity goes up. So that's all we're looking for in this part A, is just with little arrows. On the other hand, if demand goes down, right, if demand decreases, then we can see from that price goes down and quantity goes down. And we're going to draw off to the side a little tiny picture with supply. And if we said supply increases, that's a shift to the right. So if supply increases, a shift to the right, we can see that price went down and quantity went up. So again, it doesn't have to be a pretty little picture. It could just be like a little graph, but it can help you with that as you do these. If supply goes down, on the other hand, and decreases is probably a better way to say it rather than up and down, right? But decrease and increase. If it decreases, it's a shift to the left, and that's true of both demand and supply. If it's a decrease, it's always to the left. So then we see that price would go up, quantity would go down. Okay, now in this second part, part B, is just graphing supply and demand for Big Macs. And Big Macs, if you're not familiar, are a cheeseburger that's sold at McDonald's. It's sold all around the world. It's pretty famous actually because it's used as a way of determining currency valuations, which we'll talk about a long time from now in the last unit of macroeconomics actually. So we'll kind of circle back around to Big Macs. And if you've never tried one, maybe you're missing something. I don't know. I like Big Macs. What we're going to do here is just draw supply and demand first. We're going to do this 4 times. And so if you want, you could just pause my video and draw it 4 times, or you can listen to me talk to myself while I draw it 4 times. I feel like that's going to be the story of this weird school year, right? Is you listen to me talk to myself forever. I feel like I'm a little worried that some enterprising young person is going to come along and be like, I'm going to make like a compilation video of Glossinger making stupid faces. So I'm going to say Q1, P1, and Q1, and P1. Mind your P's and Q's, Sonny. That's not something that people actually say. It's just what I think fake old people say. Okay, so now we've got these graphs drawn, and we're going to just go ahead and read through the little prompts and then say, is that shifted? And if so, which one? New grilling technology cuts production time. Now, if you remember, we've got merit for demand, right? And we've got NITTE, N-I-T-T-E, for supply. So that's supply, and that one's demand. And this is going to be a little bit of like just practice with it, and you'll be able to remember what all these letters stand for. But one of the T's in NITTE stands for technology, actually. And that's because the idea is that it helps production. And that's actually even in here. So it's a little tip-off for you that it's about the producers rather than the buyers. And if it's quicker to produce things, then we'd say that that probably increases the supply. So it shifts to the right. And we should expect there to be a lower price and a higher quantity. Now, I'm going to just forewarn you that if you are not in the habit of drawing all these little dashed lines and you're not doing the little Q1, Q2, you will not get credit on exams. It's absolutely essential for you to label the graphs completely. And that means label every line. It means label every tiny little, like you go from this point to this point. So you cannot get lazy with these. And if we were in class, I'd be walking around and I'd say, you write those letters. So this is me telling you right now, write the letters. It's that important. You will not get credit from me because I don't know whether you know what you're talking about. And if you take the AP exams as well and go on further in college with this, You just have to get pretty clear about what you mean with the graphs. You're not going to be writing essays in this class. You're not going to be writing DBQs or long essays or anything like that. This is what the free responses kind of look like, is drawing these graphs. And so you've got to be really on it with them. Buyers, oh, well, that tells you this is going to be a demand shift probably. Expect McDonald's to raise prices soon. Okay, so Big Macs are sold at McDonald's, and if buyers think that the McDonald's is going to raise prices soon, it's likely that some of them will go out and get their Big Mac today instead of waiting for the McDonald's to raise the prices. If they go out and get their Big Macs today, that's expectations. That's the E in merit. It's the expectations about future prices. So they're going to buy it today. That would increase demand, shift us to the right. That increases the quantity, and it increases the price today. Now, some of you may notice this interesting thing, but I'll say it anyways. The expectations of future prices become self-fulfilling in a way, right? So if everybody thinks that prices are going to go up, in fact, they will go up. And so it's an interesting phenomena that we observe all the time in economics. The price of Whoppers, a substitute for Big Macs, decreases. And so this one is related goods. Remember, we still know that price doesn't shift the curve. That was kind of weak, sorry. I need my hat to do this. You can do this properly. Price doesn't shift the curve. That's when we talk about price, we're actually talking about the good in question, right? The Big Mac. But in this one, it's the price of the substitute. So it's perfectly okay to say that it's going to shift demand because it's the related good, the R in merit. And if the price of Whoppers goes down, then people will want to buy the Whoppers instead of the Big Macs. And so we'd expect the demand for Big Macs to decrease. Okay, and so Q2 and P2. So we expect the price and the quantity to fall. For the last one, price of ground beef, an input for Big Macs, triples. Now inputs, right? Those are a key cost of production, is an input cost. And if it's more expensive to make the Big Macs, then they can't produce as many Big Macs at any given price. So we'd say the supply is going to decrease. Shift to the left, and that means the quantity falls and the price rises. Now, I will say one thing about the labeling, right, that I failed to mention, is that the numbers that I'm using here, like 1, 2, all that thing, it's probably better if the numbers align, because like if you notice what I've done is I've written S and D and then S1, but then it went from like Q1 to Q2 and P1 to P2. That doesn't really make as much sense. Probably it would have been better had I gone and said like S1 to S2, just to keep these numbers the same. If you want to do something like that, instead of Q1, you could say Q sub 0 if you want to do that. Sometimes you'll also see them do Q star, and star just means like equilibrium, or like where you started, star started, right? So there's a variety of conventions for those. Don't get hung up on like the little subscripts. Those are okay, and you can kind of customize however you like with those. But it is pretty much the standard to say Q, D, S, and P. They have pretty set meanings, so don't choose new letters for those. Okay, now the last part, C, practice with supply and demand, is describe the change in supply, demand, price, quantity for chocolate ice cream. Students always miss that, so I've underlined it here. A severe drought in the Midwest causes dairy farmers to reduce the number of milk-producing cows in their herds by a third. Herds by a third. So this is going to be the producers, right? So there's fewer producers of milk, and milk is an input for ice cream. And so if it's more expensive to make the ice cream, we would say that's a supply, and we'd say it's a decrease in supply. If there's a decrease in supply, the price should go up, and the quantity of ice cream should go down. A new report by the AMA says that chocolate does in fact have significant health benefits. Okay, I'm sure. That's going to change people's tastes and preferences, right? Tastes and preferences. So that will be a demand change. And if people think it's going to be better for them, they'll eat more. So it's an increase in demand. So there's an increase in price and an increase in quantity of ice cream. The discovery of synthetic vanilla flavoring lowers the price of vanilla ice cream. Now, pay attention here. This is vanilla, and we can say that that is a substitute, right, for chocolate ice cream. And so if vanilla ice cream is significantly cheaper now compared to chocolate ice cream, people are going to go buy the vanilla ice cream instead of the chocolate. And so we would expect for the chocolate ice cream there to be a decrease in demand, which would mean prices go down for chocolate ice cream and quantity goes down. Last one, new technology. So the technology, again, that's a production, right? That's thinking about the suppliers, lowers costs of producing. So that's going to be supply, and it's going to increase supply, which would lower the price and increase the quantity. So hopefully this helps you with some of the practice with supply and demand. I'll see you next time.